you want to start by telling me a little bit about South African tourism's presence in India and what exactly it is that you do?
So, firstly, my name is Neliswa Nkani. I'm the hub head for South African tourism. I am based in Mumbai under normal circumstances, and we are a destination marketing organization, which is in conventional words called a tourism board. But we've moved from being a conventional tourism being to a destination marketing organization. Our core mandate is to promote South Africa as the preferred tourism destination, to contribute towards job creation, economic development, and an inclusive economic growth through tourism.
So what role would you say tourism plays in building diplomatic relations, specifically South African tourism between South Africa and India?
So this is quite interesting because a few months ago, I think it was around about November, I was privileged to meet with the Department of Tourism, the DG, to enhance our relationships because we caught wind that the National Department of Tourism, India, is opening tourism offices in South Africa. Now, mostly what happens is tourism boards just walk into countries and they just sell. We have quite a different approach where we believe it's a two-way system. And why I was reaching out to the National Tourism Board is to enhance our diplomatic relations as well as our tourism relations. We come a long way, as you know, with India. There are greater ties that bind us beyond trade and investment. If one looks at where Mahatma Gandhi and Mandela, I always say Mahatma Gandhi was the one who handed over the baton to Nelson Mandela from a philosophy perspective. And the two great guys never met, but their principles are what bind us. From a diplomatic perspective, there's a huge collaboration between trade, between South Africa as well as India. So, from a trading perspective, medical tourism, medicine, the largest pharmaceuticals that are established in South Africa, your Cipla, your Sun Pharma, those are huge. IT, ICT, technology. In 2007, we reached about 107 billion rand in terms of trade collaboration. So that's important for us because it always, the perception is that tourism is about taking, there's no beneficiation. We just an element of tourism within trade and investment, except ours is perceived as a glam. But from leisure tourism, business tourism, corporate tourism, the impact of the tourism, the Indian traveler is profound to South Africa.
And if we magnify this to work on a larger scale across the world, would you say it holds the same kind of value?
It does. I think tourism, and I always say this, one tourist for us feeds 7 family members. It's a low-hanging fruit, and it's got such tentacles in terms of amplification and job creation. And it's not necessarily job creation that is formal, because it's a combination of a formal and an informal sector. So yeah, absolutely, it holds a very, very pivotal role, and it's got a very good value proposition that it adds to us.
So is South African tourism doing something right now to help South Africans trapped in India because of the lockdown, or vice versa?
There's a lot of conversation going on with our international relations department, vice versa. We have what we did just early March, around about the second week of March, pre-closure, we realized that there's going to be a lot of people locked down. So our National Department of Tourism reached out to the High Commissioner of India and consulate generals across South Africa to find out who are the Indians that are stuck in South Africa. This obviously is not something that you get to churn within 20 minutes or an hour. There's been a lot of repatriations that's going on. We are still going on, and we are already engaging with our consulate general, and they've collected a list. There's a lot of bilateral international relation conversations that are happening. But I must also assure you, those, from my perception, I'm not going to say we are trapped in India, because I say India is a home away from home for some of us, as is South Africa for some Indian people.
That's really sweet of you to say. Thank you. So we're looking at tourism as a changed business model as a result of the lockdown. I'd like to mention a case in point. So you might have seen it. The New York Times recently came up with 50 must-visit destinations, like a virtual tourist booklet pretty much, where they put in pictures and videos of different locations that people must visit. So do you think the business model that tourism currently uses, where you need to physically visit a different place to really enjoy it, do you think that might change in the future, inspired by the lockdowns going on right now?
Tourism is about people. What makes it phenomenal is about your senses. It's about your people. I don't know if the current consumer is there where it's good enough to see a lion. I think we need to step out. I think we need to look up and see the African sky. I think we need to smell the African soil. That encounter with the lion and or being able to witness a lion feed like we just did less than 4 weeks ago with Indian tour operators can never be equated to a virtual experience. However, you will always have your what do you call them, junkies, where people are satisfied with just having a secondary experience. Virtual, it's great. It takes you out, but the real thing will always be the real thing. And you can never equate South Africa and say, I have conquered by looking at through a lens or going through a virtual experience. The two experiences are very far apart, and it's two different worlds, two different experiences. For me, you can't, I could never experience Goa through a virtual. I could never experience the Taj Mahal. I could never sit and take that picture. Photoshopping it is not good enough. I got to feel it. I got to sense it. I got to smell it. And I got to be immersed by the people. And the virtual aspect takes away that.
You're very right. I think the human aspect is definitely quintessential. Absolutely. But then
we are driven by people. We are driven by people. Africa's asset. What makes us as a country so unique, besides all the additives of good food, good wine, value proposition, is the people. The hospitality, the humility, the welcoming, and that can never be experienced.
Absolutely. I agree. So what about the fact that right now, I'm sure you've heard that lions are out in Kruger Park because there aren't as many tourists visiting. So what does this absence of physical tourism mean for the environment?
Someone was asking me, what have I taken out from this experience? Couple of things. I think my philosophy is, if you take from life, life will take from you. I think we've taken too much from the world, from the environment. It's lent an opportunity to be silent, reflect, view our environment. Are we being just to the environment? Are we being just to ourselves? You talk about lions roaming freely in the Kruger. There's a beautiful video, which I'll try and find for you post-interview, where penguins are passengers in the boulders and walking the streets and pavements without fear, without intimidation, without an overcrowded society. Sometimes it depends where you sit. You know, you'll never see a lion coming to look for us in our space. So are we being just to the world? Are we doing the travel the way we should? I think this is the best time for the animals to also just get a breather, just to take in their space and enjoy it without feeling crowded or being looked at through a glass. This is their time. If we are fair, they came here before all we did. And we are the visitors, and maybe it's time that visitors stay at home a little bit. And we look at then that how we need to evaluate how can we do this differently? Can we shift the paradigm? Can we do it differently?
What would you say to that? Can we?
I think the human species is very complicated. We always want what we can't have. I think now the consumer is going to be highly conscious of what they consume when they travel. When do they consume it? With who do they consume it? And I think there's going to be an emergence of where consumers are going to be telling us very loud and clearly what they don't want to do. And we're going to have to change the way we do business of saying, we've got these hordes and hordes of people visiting the same place. I think space is going to be very important. I think I hear the word social distancing because it's got a good and yet a negative. When you say distant, it's like, woo, I don't want to be close to you. I think people are going to ask for a little bit more freedom, exclusivity, to do the unknown without being the norm. I use the word never been before, places that people have never been before, where you have a sense of appreciation on your own, that I am the first to see it, there's an exclusivity. I think family travel is going to be even more important because it is easier to travel with my son, my husband, and my daughter because I feel safer. I have a feeling that maybe I know that I feel safer, they're healthier, which means we need to redefine health and safety, because conventionally, safety was, am I safe racially? Am I safe criminal-wise? Am I safe in the dark? Now safety becomes, am I safe health-wise? Do I know the person sitting next to me, their underlying conditions? So we need to review and unpack what safety means. I'm not sure if it's something that we are ready to talk about, but there's going to be a shift, definitely. And we've been very fortunate through speaking to some consumers and just getting an idea, because this industry is people-driven. I think the past has been, the sellers have sold and consumers have latched on. We need to go back and say, what does the customer want? Do we know? And have we factored that in? And can we do an audit of what we have? Which means there's going to be a need for huge product diversification. We need to go back and juggle and say, how do we refresh South Africa? How do we refresh the travel world? And we need to be conscious that this virus has brought a lot of prejudices, which we need to overcome. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of anger, a lot of prejudice, and it's like poverty. Poverty has no race. Poverty has no gender. So when a virus like this comes, it could have come from anywhere. The question is, how do we respond and respect its boundaries? And how do we respect those we travel and the atmosphere that the environment we are in, and the way we travel? Washing your hands coming out of the toilet in an airplane, do we do it? We get a glass and food, we eat and we give to people, we sneeze. There's a paradigm shift that needs to happen when it comes to consumption of the environment, and there's a paradigm, and the quicker people get onto the bandwagon that the consumer is king and we need to listen to them, the quicker this industry will recover.
Okay, I want to go back to when you said there needs to be a paradigm shift in the way we consume the environment. What role would you say South African tourism can play in making consumers aware of the way they utilize the environment?
I think there's a word that we use very often. I'm not sure if we actually delve down properly. It's across the world. We call it sustainable tourism. I've thrown in something called ethical tourism. Are we ethical in the way that we consume South Africa? And I think one of the great things that we start talking about in South Africa, the National Department of Tourism, even those tour operators that in DMCs, is where we say there is a need for us to diversify. We need to start spreading tourism to rural so that there's an ethical impact, where the rural community are the beneficiaries of this sector, because it's got a lot of layers of in-between people. By the time you land in a rural area, the people who are actually offering that experience are getting crumbs. Sustainable tourism, it starts from using a paper straw, to using a plastic straw. It starts from, can I drink water in a metal or is it plastic? It starts from, what do we do with food that we don't finish? Do we donate it? We as South African tourism, from a sustainable perspective, both from environmental and the human element, this disease has struck a chord and really shown what poverty is like. And we've gone in and said, the money we have not used, we're going to return to our national department, and we're going to give it back to them to reinvest it to small, medium enterprises, which is a fantastic. We have food banks as a country that we've started to open. I think what's missing in also the tourism sector, from the DMOs to the tour operators to the consumer traveling, I'm not sure if we've been social enough on a human element. You leave your clothes behind in a hotel by mistake. What happens to them? Should we not have a movement in tourism where we have a food bank, a clothing bank? If I'm bringing people to India for a holiday, what do I leave behind for India? Or does it just go into the tax coffers? What do I leave for those who are disadvantaged? So we need to, there's an opportunity to redefine what sustainable tourism is and ethical tourism. And I think this is a good time to start. I'm not sure if I've answered you.
You have, yes. Yes, thank you so much for that. All right. And finally, I'd like to ask you about some of the challenges, besides naturally the fiscal impact, but some of the other challenges that the tourism industry is currently facing because of global travel restrictions.
I think one is massive is the unemployment, because it's such an informal sector. Your tour guides, there's no income. DMCs will have to shed some jobs. Tour operators will have to shed some jobs. Cut in salaries in South Africa. the government, all government officials have taken a financial cut between 25 and 30%, which obviously has a rippling effect. You know, your bond doesn't get, your mortgage bond doesn't get cut by 30%, your card doesn't get cut by 30%, your grocery bill doesn't get 30%. It's also allowed, it's also facilitated a massive standstill. Everybody is coming up with a recovery plan. You know, India is coming up with a recovery plan, from a government to a tourism. I pick up a missed opportunity. The global tourism sector is talking, lots of talking. I don't think we've engaged fully with each other to say, because my business is dependent on India. My success is dependent on the Indian traveler. Therefore, it is only just for me to speak to the Indian trade and share and engage. And I think there's a missed opportunity there. I think we also have we are missing an opportunity to do communication with consumers. The people who are going to bring this back is the traveler, not me as the destination, because I am dependent. There's a huge interdependency. And I think we need to elevate our strategic engagement. We've lost in this pandemic across the board. We've lost a lot, but I'm an optimist. We've gained so much valuable time, 3 weeks to stand still. I was talking to a tourism partner of mine yesterday. It felt like when I needed to speak to him, I needed to say Happy New Year. It felt like it's a new start. It's like a morphine process where what's happened in the last 3 weeks is almost forgotten. And we must never go back to being careless, because there will be another emergence. And we must ask ourselves, what would we do differently? Loss is astronomical. The loss is astronomical. I can't quantify it, but the gains have been incredible, because those of us who are standing need to be ever so gracious and grateful and humble. Those of us who are still standing need to be far more conscious of what do we mean to each other. Those of us who are standing need to extend ourselves even greater. And we need to be true to each other, to say, have I checked in on my colleague? Have I checked in on my competitor? It's going to mean that we redefine the word competitor, because we're going to need to be compassionate.
So we're definitely going to see a lot of collaboration then.
Definitely, definitely. And we owe it to ourselves. And we also need to do what we call peer review. When something is not ethical to the environment, to the business, to the growth of the human species, we need to be able to say it's not just. And I don't think we did that a lot across all sectors. We were so focused on bringing numbers. We are so focused on increasing the bank coffers. We are so focused on competing. We are so focused to say, don't use this company, use us. We're the big ones, we're the small ones. This virus has taught us there is no big player. We are all equal, and we have no power, actually. Our power is limited. The only power we have sits here and here, maybe.
Thank you, Neliswa. That's really profound. Thank you so much. That's all the questions I have. Do you have anything you would like to add as an ending note?
I just want to relay a message, as small as it is, that we're a tourism industry that is very resilient. We would not be where we are without India. We need to count our blessings, and that when this passes, we will come out a better citizen, a better industry, and that may God favor India, bless its citizens, and favor the businesses that give life to tourism. And may you be sustained and continually amplified in the good that we all do. Stay blessed.
Thank you so much, Neliswa. I hope you stay safe, stay informed, and keep hustling. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.